well, unless you want to say something initially. I thought we might wait just a minute or two because of the new location.
Well, while we're sitting here, in some ways, this is a better room than
That's great. No, thank you.
than the regular Board of Regents room. The tables are a little
Yeah, you're not so far away.
Well, yeah, it's, we may want to start meeting over here.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
It was, you know, we'll.
Yeah.
It's probably the same in terms of. It's not a long walk for anybody. It's shorter for some and
Yeah.
longer for me.
Yeah, definitely longer for me too.
Yeah. So,
All right, I guess we'll call this meeting to order. So thank you so much, faculty, for coming here to another Faculty Advisory Council meeting. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic February, but we definitely appreciate your time and your dedication to shared governance. So just to remember that the Faculty Advisory Council is only advisory, so we don't make decisions, but we advise those who have the decision-making power concerning faculty needs and shared governance needs and those types of things. So Dr. Windler did instruct me for this meeting to try and keep it relatively bare bones so we can dedicate most of our time to discussing the museum. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that, hopefully very productive discussion concerning the museum. So we'll open it up with line item number 1, which is Dr. Windler, who wanted to make some remarks concerning the civics instruction.
right, we have, I think I mentioned this in an earlier meeting, that we have secured a grant, a $2 million grant, in conjunction with Texas Southern University, which is in Houston. Happens to be in the 3rd Ward, which is a very challenging part of the city of Houston. And TSU and WT are working together on this grant regarding how we improve civics instruction in secondary schools and universities. Because we all agreed that made this proposal that civics instruction was in fact critical. Well, then not directly in response to that, but as time went on, a month or two after that grant, the chancellor wanted to have some seminars, some campus activities related to civil discourse. And of course, for me, civil discourse and civics are absolutely, I think, linked together. It's hard to have effective civic leadership without civil discourse. When things turn into shouting matches, just, you know, we've witnessed some of that in the news. You see some of it just doesn't, it's not civil and it doesn't make sense. And typically is not effective, I don't think. I'm not a student of this, but it certainly doesn't work for me. I think, golly, why don't these people treat each other with dignity and respect? You know, live by the golden rule like we talk about sometimes. At any rate, we now have a day, and it is Tuesday, March 31st. We're going to have a symposium, a day-long symposium on civil discourse and civics education. And we have a number of speakers that are coming in. Tom Lindsay, Brandon Simmons, who is Governor Abbott's appointee as the first director of institutional policy and oversight, the ombudsman position, which it's brand new, and he's anxious to get here, he told me. So I'm glad he's going to come. Aaron Kinsey, who's the chairman of the Texas State School Board, which of course has significant impact on these kinds of things. We also have two people in an afternoon panel, 3 people. Aaron Kinsey will be on the panel. Tom Lindsay, who is the Higher Education Policy Director for Next Generation Texas at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Josh Green, who's the Senior Vice President of the Daniels Fund Scholarship Program, and we have 23 or 24 Daniels scholars on the campus. And those are they're very nice scholarships. They pay up to $100,000 to a student for tuition and fees and other costs associated with pursuing their degree. And they tend to be very strong students academically, very competitive. And I won't give you the history on the Daniels Scholarship Fund, but you could Google it and go look online. It's a pretty impressive program. And then Richard Johnson, who is on the Texas Southern University Board of Trustees. So these folks are all coming on the 31st of March throughout the day. And they're going to talk about different aspects of civics. And I think it's already online. The symposium is already posted online, and you can go look at the schedules and the speaker bios and so on. I think they're all there now. They may not be. We're still working on this. It's evolving and coming to fruition as we move along. It's moving pretty quickly. We wanted to get it done before too long. And then, by the way, there were three schools identified to address this civil discourse issue. And our proposal was that we were going to look at the distinctives, and this is part of what the grant does, the distinctives in civil discourse between a place like Texas Southern University in the region that it serves and West Texas A&M University in the region we serve, because they are about as different a region of service as you can get. And, one of the questions we're going to ask is, do you approach civics differently in different regions? I mean, is there, with different demographics and so on? And if you do, are there underlying themes in those areas that supersede any sort of perceived differences regarding SES, race, everything, and how all that works together. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be very interesting. And the folks at Texas Southern have been great to work with. They worked on the grant application with us. That was we proposed almost $2 million. And anybody that writes grants understands that we were only $1,400 short of whatever we asked for, which is, normally they would have clipped out $500,000. They said, well, can you do it for $1.5 million rather than $2 million? They clipped out $1,400, and I think it was for snacks or something. I don't know what it was for. It's hard to get anything that small, actually, in this kind of grant. And I don't say that in a cavalier way. It was remarkable, and I think with the reviewers, this proposal must have resonated. So I bring that up because you're going to be hearing some about this from the college, hopefully college leadership, and so on and so forth, encouraging you, if you have courses or even if you don't have courses, to encourage classes where there's maybe a relationship between the course content and this idea of civil discourse. And the fact of the matter is, I think you need that in calculus myself. I think you need it everywhere. If students want to come, and they can come for any one of the events or for any number of the events. There's a lunchtime speaker. That's when Brandon Simmons is going to speak at lunch. And we're providing lunch for anybody that comes. You just have to sign up. So it'll be a free lunch. And then we have a dinner speaker, and we're going to provide dinner also. Because we actually put some of that into the grant to have meetings where we bring people together to talk about these issues. And anyway, I'm very excited about that. And I hope other people get excited about it and say, this could be interesting, and start discussions about these subjects. Hopefully people would say, oh, this is a good idea. So that's my remarks on the civic. And by the way, we are reaching out to high school teachers as well. And we're going to look at an experimental 4-course sequence basically in Western civilization. and we're actually going to design 4 courses. I think Bruce Brasington is going to teach the first one in the summer. And as part of the grant, the students who participate in those courses won't have to pay tuition and fees on those courses. So they'll be free courses, but it'll get university credit. And it's a little bit like the Hawthorne effect could be. Because they're a special group and because they're not having to pay, they might really show a lot of energy towards it and, ask questions and be engaged. A lot of times, and you all know this better than I, in a class of 20 or 30 students, if half of them are engaged on a particular day, you usually do it pretty well. Half would be pretty good. And I'd like to get even a stronger engagement than that, really engaged. And we're going to encourage the various honors groups to come. Rogers Lee, WT, people from the honors program. I forget all that, but long list that we're talking to specifically ahead of time to encourage them to come to this, but then also encourage them to look at this course. And we're going to try to get people that have a strong record of being effective teachers. And I've never sat in a course with him, but from what I understand, Bruce Brasington is a very good faculty member, engaging and so on and so forth. And thankfully, we have a lot of good faculty members, but in this area, I think and he's very interested in doing it. So anyway, that's it. That's it. Sorry.
Dr. Windler, above and beyond encouraging our students to attend, is there anything else you would like to see out of the faculty concerning this? Is there anything else we can do?
Well, I think above and beyond that, not too much, except it would be great, I think, to be there and let students see faculty members there. The venues right now are one of the rooms downstairs in the JBK and also Legacy Hall. But I've asked people to look at possibly the Branding Iron Theater. I think that's a very good sort of venue for this kind of thing. And I actually think we'll be able to easily fill that up. Maybe even have some overflow in the student center if there's too many people. And I hope there are. This is a very important topic nowadays because we see so much, I guess I'll call it uncivil behavior, and we tend to, we just see a lot of it. And I don't think anybody would question the civility or the lack thereof in certain kinds of behaviors. And the question is why and what can we do to enhance public civility? And some people say, well, it's not the job of a university, but I differ with that. I think it is in part the job of a university. Because supporting a Republican form of government is clearly the job of a public university. A private university can make another argument, but we can't. Most of our funding comes from public sources. And in order to sustain the society that provides resources for us, that doesn't mean we all agree on everything. That's silliness, but it means that we engage in civil discourse on how things work. And I think our students could benefit from that. I could benefit from it sometimes. And if you don't think so, follow me around one day. You'll see some uncivil behavior, I'm sure.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Okay.
To line item number 2, I just have a few follow-ups from our previous meeting. First and foremost, our minutes from our January 30th meeting. They should be there in front of you. This is where we largely did the selection process for CPE committees. Does anybody see any issues, needs for corrections, or anything on those minutes? I'll give you all a minute to take a look at those.
There is typo for College of Engineering CPE name. It's a brush, it will be R-A-J, not H.
Ah. Can you email that correction to me?
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. Great. Any other recommendations, needs for correction?
I move that we approve.
Approve? Yeah. Anybody have an issue approving?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So I have been working diligently on the CPE process. One thing I didn't realize is that the Faculty Advisory Council, where the comprehensive peer evaluation process is faculty-driven, we actually drive that. I knew that we selected the committee members. I didn't realize that we drove the process basically from beginning almost to the end. And so I've been working very closely with those faculty members who are going through the CPE process. They're in the process of uploading all of their materials to me. I made folders available to them on OneDrive because where this is faculty driven, we don't use Interfolio for it. So I made individual folders for each one of them on OneDrive. They're uploading all of their materials to me for that. On March 2nd, I will restrict their access to the folders, and then I will turn access over to those committee members. And then I can't remember off the top of my head, I think they need to make a decision in and around March 25th. But that was kind of news to me, although it is written in the faculty handbook, so I just wanted to make sure that you guys were a little more familiar with the process as well, because it seems like a lot of us aren't. Any questions on that? We did an excellent job selecting people last time. There was one error that was not our fault, but we did actually end up selecting someone to serve on a committee who was actually going through the CPE process. But fortunately, we were very diligent in how we cataloged everything, and so I could just go to the next person. So fortunately, it wasn't a big deal. Also, in terms of the accessibility requirements, hopefully you guys have all been seeing and getting a little bit more information on that. It does seem as if more information about that and what we should be doing is filtering out. I know that there's training basically every Friday until I think around the end of the semester that you can attend about those new accessibility standards. And some of you may know more about this than me if you've been to that training. And I believe we're really kind of focusing on Canvas and the new Ally. Can anybody help me with the pronunciation of that?
Ally.
With that, yeah. Yeah, and that should help us meet those accessibility requirements that go into effect at the end of April. So definitely recommend to your faculty to attend that training, because I think this is going to be a big shift for a lot of us. So please ensure that your faculty are familiar and aware of that. I did also travel around campus, and I put up these flyers concerning the faculty ombuds officer. Have any of you guys seen them anywhere? Perfect, excellent. I'd love to see those head nods. That's great. So I haven't made it out to Ag yet. I was actually out there the other day, and I didn't bring any with me. And then Landon said that he could put some up over in the Amarillo Center for us. So Landon, I'll probably give you this one at the end of the meeting too. So. And then we're still working on, I'm going to work with the executive committee some next week to try and rework the ombuds officer kind of selection / application process to try and get that more formalized. So that is still something that is on our radar. And once we work on that, we'll present it to all of you to solicit your feedback. And with that, we will move on to line item number 3, the Merit Subcommittee report and discussion. And for that discussion, I will turn it over to Dr. Brooks.
Thanks, Brandon. Dr. Bang. You all should have 2 documents in front of you. A summary and discussion of the results of the survey we did of department heads, which have been tallied up in a way that makes sense, kept anonymous. The second document is sort of our draft recommendations for how to deal with some of the salary pay issues that have come up in the various conversations we've been having for the last several months. All I really want to say right now is we're giving you these so you can take a look at them, and also you can share the contents of these with your dean. We're being encouraged to meet regularly with our deans. You can share the contents with them, but also ask your ask your colleagues in your different colleges what they think about these ideas. If they have ideas or concerns that aren't on here, please bring them to us, because we want to make sure all those different voices are represented. So,
Ryan, do you think it'd be okay to email these out to everyone too, so they could email them out to their faculty if they wanted?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll email it out to everyone then. And do you think it'd be okay also if I just emailed the deans and told them to expect to hear from the Faculty Advisory Council members to discuss it before our next meeting?
I think that would be a great idea.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right, excellent, great. Well, thank you so much for that, Ryan and Lee and Betty, who are all working on the committee, and I think we're making good progress. Yeah. With that moves it to the new business, which is clearly the Panhandle Plains Historic Museum discussion. And so I asked Dr. Wendler how he wanted this to work, and he just told me to turn the time over to him. So it's all you.
Okay, thanks. First, let me just say I like what I see from the recommendations on the merit. For all of you who have been involved with it, I think there's some good points in here. And I think it's going to generate focused discussion. And I'm just out of curiosity, I don't want to necessarily point to anybody, but have you been successful in getting to meet with the deans?
Set up a meeting in the College of Business, but we haven't had one yet.
Okay. I would really strongly encourage you, and they can look at it on the saved live stream and hear me say this if they want to. I can't find one good reason for a member of the two members from each college that are on this committee to not sit with the dean once a month for an hour and just talk about, unless you don't feel there's anything that we need to talk about, but just this merit discussion. Be interesting to see what your deans think, and not in a way to I don't know, sort of reflect directly on anyone, but to have actually a civil conversation. A civil conversation. And it's not that that couldn't happen; that will happen. I know, but I just think it's important. This was always a challenge with the faculty senate. And faculty senators, many of them never met with the deans. And when I was a dean, it's been many years ago, I actually had the senate on the faculty senate. We had a caucus. We had 4 faculty senate members. Our college at A&M was fairly small, college of architecture, but we had 4 members based on the population. And I actually asked them to elect a caucus leader, and that person sat on the executive committee. And some of the department heads and associate deans pushed back and said, we discuss personnel matters. Well, I said, when we do, we can ask the person to leave if that's, if we need to do that. And I don't think we ever had to ask them. We don't discuss personnel matters. It's just not in those executive committee meetings. We talk about matters of vision and where the college is going and where the programs are and so on and so forth. So if you haven't had success in meeting with the dean, I would encourage you to try again. I'm going to ask again next month. And if you don't, then I'm going to ask you to tell me who the deans are, and I'll ask the deans why they can't carve out an hour to meet with people that are on this advisory committee. Because I'm treating it seriously, I expect them to treat it seriously. And it's not to say if they have a hard time finding the time to meet, they may be very busy. I get that. But I'd say all of you are pretty busy too. Anybody that's not busy, raise your hand. No hands went up. All right. So the Panhandle Plains, I know many of you have been following this sort of developments here. This is a very, there's a lot of factors involved in this. And I would say first among them is funding. We just don't have a steady stream of funding. We have a steady stream, and it's $266,000 a year from the state of Texas that comes as in response to an LAR, a legislative appropriation, to run the museum, $266,000 per year. And it costs, just to open the doors and turn the lights on and the AC and make sure that all of the IT is working and all that, it cost us $100,000 a month, and we get $266,000 in round numbers, is about a week of operations annually from the state of Texas. That sounds like I'm making a disparaging comment from the state of Texas. I'm not. There's just no clear funding mechanism for an institution like the museum on the campus. Texas Tech has the Ranching Heritage Museum, and Sam Houston State has a museum on its campus, but ours is by far the biggest. And when you look at the expense as a proportion of the total budget, ours is so far in excess of what any of the other institutions have. And even Sam Houston State is working to close theirs down because they don't have the money to run it. And they're having the same kind of conversations that we're having here. A lot of people are concerned about it. The museum is an important part of the community, and I get that. And I concur with it. And the question is, can we find a funding source of, I call it a durable stream of funding. And we don't have one now. It's been catch as catch can, take money out of the general revenue accounts and allocate it for the museum. And that's how we've been keeping it open since I've been here. It's been that way the whole time. And that's a challenge. That's one challenge. Another challenge is there are two funding streams that we need. One is for capital improvements and capital maintenance, which are additions to the this building was renovated as a capital expense. And the other is for ongoing operations, which is what we're using $100,000 a month for, but there's no specific stream of revenue. The building, and people, there's a lot of discussion about this, but the building is not classified as an educational and general facility for which the state provides funding. And there are some portions of the museum that would be considered educational and general space, but it's a very small portion of the total space in the museum. Many of you may have seen or heard these numbers, but the original Panhandle Plains Historical Museum, what we call Pioneer Hall, was less than 12,000 feet, built in 1933 for a grand total of $50,000. And, that the costs have gone, escalated in a remarkable way in the last 100 years. Maybe it's not remarkable, I don't know, but they've gone way up. And on top of that, the size, the actual extent of the building has gone from somewhat less than 12,000 square feet to more than 215,000 square feet. So while the cost to operate it and maintain it have gone up, the resources available to do so have gone down. It's just arithmetic. And I have, with great trepidation, but I have said we can't continue to do this. It's not fair to the museum. With the public safety issues as an architect, when I designed buildings, I was responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the people in the buildings. Even things like off-gassing of materials, the glue in a lot of carpets would let gas into the air that was unhealthy. And architects and others this was years ago now, but started to pay attention to that because it created a public safety issue. More dramatic public safety issues, but hard to see, are what happens in the event of a fire. How do people vacate the building and so on and so forth. And we've been addressing those issues. The first fire marshals report, they were here yesterday at my request to give us a sense, an update on how we're doing in addressing, and we don't have the report yet, but I think I'm supposed to get it by the end of the day today, just to see how we're doing. And I'm interested in that. I want to let people know that this is not, we're not being cavalier about this. We're trying to be responsive to the needs of the community. The first of which is the safety of people. The second of which, for me, in that facility, is the safety of the artifacts. because many of them have great value to the state and to our history and so on. And I want to make sure those artifacts are safe. As it is now, if there was to be a fire, and I don't even like to talk this way, but if there was to be a fire in that museum, the old library, which is where a lot of the archival material is stored, Canyon Fire Department will not go into that space to try to extinguish the fire. It's too dangerous. There's not enough exit stairways, and you can get down there and get trapped and so on and so forth, and they're not going to go. The local fire chief told me, and I asked around, and sure enough, there's actually state law that says that if there's a building is a safety hazard for firefighters, they stay out of it. It won't endanger the lives of the firefighters. I didn't know that actually until this is something I've learned on this go round. So we're working on these things. It is one of the most challenging issues I've ever had to deal with in a leadership position on a university campus, and I've been in them off and on since 1992. I started as dean at A&M of the College of Architecture in 1992, and since then, I've pretty much always been in some sort of a leadership position at levels from dean and up. And this is the most challenging problem I've ever had to deal with in terms of how to work through it. And there's all kinds of complexities. You know, the artifacts are owned by the Panhandle Plains Historical Society, which is a 501c3. They believe that we're supposed to provide a safe building and so on and so forth, and we are supposed to do all that, and we're trying our best, but we just don't have the funding. So it's a challenge, but we are continuing to work through all that. I also believe, this is personal, but it becomes professional, that this museum is clearly important to the university. I mean, I know there are faculty that feel very strongly about the importance to their own areas of expertise, Center for the Study of the American West and so on. That is really important to the people engaged in that, and I think it's important well beyond that. I think we undervalue the sort of deep precepts of what it means to be part of the American West. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, it's a complicated sort of question to answer. Even what is the American West? I mean, some people think it's somebody on horseback with a 6-shooter. That may be a part of it, but it's only one small part of it. There's a whole intellectual perspective, I think, that is alive and is given sustenance by what it means to be part of the American West. Now, by the way, I don't know the answers to the questions, but I think it's a legitimate question. And I know there is something special about it. So trying to recognize all this and find a solution to a problem that has a price tag that's very high, and most people cannot understand why it costs as much as it does, but it is expensive. And that's not I know it, but we've hired engineers to tell us the cost to do the work that needs to be done. And on top of that, I've got this other problem that we don't talk much about, but of deferred maintenance. I'm charged by the Texas A&M University system, and by good judgment, from my perspective, good judgment, and now by the state of Texas, to reduce what's called deferred maintenance. This building had $40 million worth of a deferred maintenance tab on it. Now it's been renovated, there's no deferred maintenance. This is a 21st century building. It meets all the latest codes. There's no deferred maintenance in it. And that's good for us because we reduced our deferred maintenance tab. And by the way, ours is very high, in part because of the age of our campus. As buildings age, they need more maintenance. And I haven't gone through this as carefully as I need to, but there are health, safety, and welfare issues in the museum, but there's also, the last count, about $70 million worth of deferred maintenance Some of it could have the impact on fire safety, but some of it has to do with the air conditioning systems. And we call it heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, HVAC systems that are antiquated and not suitable to preserve artifacts of value. And it hasn't been addressed because there hasn't been money. And, people will wring their hands over it and then move on to the next subject. And my sense is that we should not be wringing our hands over that. We should take some kind of action to remedy the problem. I'm proud of what we were able to do here, and this took 7 years to get this building completed, and I'm proud of it. It's in a way, I'm thankful that we're able to get the resources from the state of Texas to do this and take it off the rolls of deferred maintenance. We did that on the old dormitory over Stafford Hall by raising it. We'll soon raise the old sub is going to be gone because it is a deferred maintenance nightmare also. So there's these factors that it's in a sense my job and the job of leadership at the system and other leaders here on the campus to sort through all that stuff. And I don't expect everybody to just understand it. And I spend a lot of time trying to explain it, maybe too much. And I should just say, look, that's the way it is. But I people, I think, inquiring minds want to know, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to work to try to clarify why these things exist. And what the issues are. That's kind of the overview of it, and I'm going to say we're working hard. I believe we're working. I sleep well at night. I wish there was a solution, but I don't lay down at night and think, man, I should have done more today. I'm doing all I can about it, and it's a lot of time. But anyway, I'd be glad to entertain any questions or observations about any of this.
Yeah, so thanks, Dr. Wendler. So in your most recent, I think, blog posts or public comments, you said you have a plan now for keeping it on campus, that the sort of details of it may not be revealable until like May or June, but I guess, can you tell us maybe, so it sounds like you are committed now at this point to doing everything possible to keeping it on campus. Can you tell us anything more about this plan? And I went to journalism school before I became an English professor, so I have some questions. And how should we have any expectation that, in light of all the work y'all have done in the past to try to raise the money, should we have any expectation that this time it's going to be any different? Like, what do you think are the chances of success of keeping the museum on campus?
Well, I will say that the system offices, and this is not to suggest that the previous chancellor didn't want to try to find a solution, but I will say that Chancellor Hager is working very diligently with us. We have got the attention of elected officials. We've had a number of people come through. I've got a group coming. As a matter of fact, I think I have the whole delegation coming next Tuesday to walk through and get a sense of the extension of the task. I almost want to say the enormity of the task because it is enormous. One of the other things that's so challenging, you walk through the building, it doesn't look dangerous. But, you have a little flutter in your heart, your friend might say, I would worry about it. But if you go to a cardiologist, they may say, hey, wait a second, we've got to look at that. In this case, in a sense, I'm the cardiologist because this is my business. It's not a hobby, it's my business. I've been registered to practice architecture in 3 states, and it's only about health, safety, and welfare. It's not about whether you make beautiful buildings or ugly buildings or any of that. It's about health, safety, and welfare. In fact, a friend of mine once quipped that if people if their buildings were judged to not be beautiful, that about half the architects in America would be in jail. That would be true. But Ryan, to your point, I would say that by May, my goal is to have overturned every possible stone in looking for solutions. Now, what I'm going to say next, I'm going to wish I didn't say it, but I don't have as good a governor as some people. I will tell you, I don't think any president that I have looked at in the last 50 years has given as much energy to this as I'm trying to. It was a very difficult circumstance to deal with. And I don't mean to say that in both as a boasting thing or something, but it's just that as an architect, I understand how important it is, the building itself. And as somebody that's spent a long time in universities, I understand the importance of the history, and I am really committed to this region. I mean, I don't run away from regionalism. I don't wish we were in New York City. I've lived there. I don't wish we were in San Francisco or Berkeley. I've lived there. I don't wish we were in Houston or Austin. I've lived there. I don't wish to be Baton Rouge. I don't wish to be in any of those places. I'm glad to be right here. And that museum is about being right here. So it's important to me too. It's not like we went there on family vacations or, went each year in the fall to the museum. I've read a lot of stuff online about people's common sense on, and they're heartfelt, they're real. But for some other reason, I don't know if it's an outside eye or what, I am absolutely committed to making sure so Ryan, to your question directly, in the next 2 months, there will be no stone that is left unturned. And we're working on all of them simultaneously. State government, local government, public funding of all kinds, private funding, philanthropy. We're looking at the relationship between the society and the university and how we share the cost of this. The society feels like we're supposed to pick up all of the costs of the museum, and it was a contract that was signed in 1933, and it does, it's pretty much inferred in that contract. But we can't spend money as a state agency that we don't have. I mean, we just can't do it. So, Ryan, if there is a point, and I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about this, I'm trying to be honest and sincere that we are going to work diligently to do everything we can to find resources to fix this and fix it appropriately. I don't want a Band-Aid. I mean, the argument is that Band-Aid's been used before. For example, I think everybody's read that part of the museum is sprinklered and part of it is not. Well, the fact of the matter is there are workarounds that have been done in the past where when additions to the museum were made, they should by rights have been sprinkled, but they talked their way, the university, in its good intentions, talked the way out of the requirement of sprinklers, fire suppression. And it shouldn't have been done. Now, I'm not saying what they did was wrong. They were trying to get as much result for the dollar investment as they could, and not putting sprinklers in the building allowed there to be a greater area, for example, make the rooms bigger, because you could save the sprinkler costs. And short term, that was a good idea, probably. Now I'm having to deal with it because I'm not going to overlook it because the spaces that are sprinklered are unsafe. And if there are a group of, grade school students from Borger, Texas in there, and God forbid a fire breaks out, and students are harmed to the ultimate harm, whatever it might be, that's unacceptable to me. If we knew it was a problem, and I know it's a problem. And Ryan, I'm not sure that answers the question, but I'm being diligent about it as best I can. And I'm talking to a lot of people about it.
Who do you think will kind of lead, since Smithy is retiring, who do you think will sort of be our voice down in Austin on this issue? I mean, is it gonna, that seems like a potential, yet another obstacle kind of.
In some ways it might be, but I think the chancellor is very committed to trying to find the right answer to this problem also. I just spent an hour with him, and I'm not making this up. Just an hour ago, I got off the phone with him at 11 o'clock. As a matter of fact, I thought our meeting was at 12. I said, I've got a meeting. I've got to kind of think about what we're going to talk about with the faculty advisory council. By the way, as an aside, no charge for this, I'm going to say we probably got the best operationalized faculty advisory council of any school in the system. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke. I'm just saying Neil told me that. In the provost meeting, they talked about it. He said some of the places, some of the campuses still don't even haven't had meetings. This is going to be old hat for us. I mean, you know, it's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And that's not part of it. I think continuity is very important in all this. And Ryan, to your point, I think it's been a lack of continuity at times in the past that creates some of the problems. And then we wake up in a new world every day. And it's not right. Not the way we should be doing business. So I'm hopeful that we have a good, steady stream of commitment and I'll say passion with kind of a small p, passion about this, of trying to get it done. I just, you know, in some ways, I talk all the time about the distinctives of WT, and this is one of them, and this is one I wish wasn't so distinctive. We don't have any models to use. There's no other places to emulate. Even UT's example is different. And they do have, and I've been to it, in part to try to understand it in relationship to ours. It's different. It's just different. And, you know, some people have suggested, well, you know, if we had a program in museum management or museum curatorship or something like that, that would help. And then that could become like a living laboratory for people that are studying. And that's a good point. And we've looked at it. And I think the folks in Sybil B. Harrington are looking at it. So, Ryan, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of where we are. And, you know, it's, and the plan is not specific yet. There's a lot of moving parts. Right?
So my case is more about how much are we coming out of our pocket to do this, and who's helping besides us? I know that you're working hard on the legislation. I commend you about all the presidents, and I've looked at history, born and raised here. I know no one has done what you did or has done. Who else besides is PPH doing something? Yes, and then also above that, the community here, what are they doing to help it? Because I noticed in the history, no one's done anything. No one, besides what's happening right now. You. And how much is coming out of our pocket? Because mostly it's coming out of our pocket, right? It's really coming out of our pocket. And, you know, I just don't know. I commend your last, you know, blog that you had, given the facts, given everything that you said. Also an article that was in the Emerald Tribune that was written up and said something about our legislation. Commend you about talking about Smithy, our elected officials. No one has done anything besides you. So who else is going to help? That's my biggest question.
Hard to say. I will say, I've said it, I'm going to say it again to sort of emphasize the point. The Chancellor is very engaged in this, trying to think through the right way to get things done. And he appreciates the value of the museum to both to the campus and the extended community. That's part of what makes this complicated, is that there's a fairly limited number of faculty that are really engaged with this. And Orion is to some extent. Alex Hunt is, and a number of other faculty, Amy Von Lintel. I mean, for different reasons, they're engaged with the museum, but it's a fairly small number. And it does, by the way, come out of your pocket. I made the comment in one of my, by the way, they're not blog posts, they're all op-eds because they appear in newspapers. It's not somebody somewhere publishes this stuff. If they don't, I don't put it on the website. So every one of those things appears somewhere. And some have been, a couple of them in the Dallas Morning News, which is not easy to get there. I'm just telling the truth. You know, the liberal Kansas newspaper publishes everything I write, but they might be anxious for content, you know, to put ads around. I don't know. But anyway, and I'm very thankful to them. There's a lot of other papers that do. Plainview publishes a lot of them. We keep track of where they're going and so on and so forth. Anyway, I think people are energized. I think John Smithy is somebody that is working very diligently. The mayor of Amarillo, Canyon is working diligently. And I think they want to see a good resolution that recognizes the power of the museum to the extended community. But it has been a little bit frustrating to get everybody to be talking about these issues. And the society, and this is not a disparaging comment about the society, but they see their job is the management of the collection. My job is the management of the building. And they're kind of right, but you can't separate these two things completely. Every museum expert that we've had come and look at these collections, and we've had a number of them. We had a group last week from the Texas Historical Commission that was here on campus in the museum and looking around, and they all say the same thing. The collections need to be reduced by somewhere from 40 to 50%. We've got too much stuff. Too much stuff that's not related to the mission of the museum. And part of that is when somebody says, hey, would you like to have my old or my grandmother's? And they say, okay, we'll take that. We can put that downstairs. And the problem is then you end up with I was in a meeting the other day with the Texas Historical Commission folks that were up here. We were talking about carefully assessing the collection and making sure that we could trim the collection with articles that could be legitimately deaccessioned because they don't add much to the story. Each article may add a little bit out of 2 million articles, but some, it's very, very little. That would be of interest to anybody other than family members and so on. Well, we're in the room, in the Education Credit Union lecture room or meeting room back there. There was a table along the wall, and this wasn't a setup, but there was some bicycles standing on the table and some lamps. And I said, for example, I had a J.C. Higgins just like that one that my father got me from Sears and Roebuck out of the catalog. I had that same bicycle. I said, why is that in the museum? And they said, it's on the way out. I said, well, good. That's a good start just to see that because it's not historically significant. Not to a museum that talks about the American West and the heritage of the Panhandle and the Southern Great Plains and so on and so forth. Anyway, I think we are, Ray, to your point, sorry for rambling on, but I think we are getting to a place where other people are interested. I can't promise any results from that because the needs, the financial needs of this are fairly significant. But a lot of people are paying attention. We have our full legislative delegation is going to be here on the 5th to walk through the museum with Heather, with the our on-campus fire safety person, and point out what some of the challenges are. Because, as you say, you walk through the building, it looks fine. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look like it's going to catch fire or anything. I don't know what that would look like. So it's hard.
I wouldn't want to being a principal at one time. I would never want to be, just letting you guys know, be on that basement. I've been in there before where I've actually done campuses and things like that. When you look at accessibility, you do not want to be caught down there. I promise you that. It's an eerie feeling. It's an eerie feeling. I've been there before.
Well, the basement of the old library had what architects call load-bearing stacks. And the need for load-bearing stacks is generated because there are two kinds of loads in a building, live loads and dead loads. Dead loads are the weight of the structure itself, and live loads are the people and contents that you put in the structure. Very quick lesson, probably weak on a couple of points, but that's generally the case. What is the case in many older library buildings is they made the stacks load-bearing, so the standers that hold the shelves go from wherever they are at the highest point all the way down to the ground and bring the load back to the earth because the books are so heavy. And that reduces the need for a denser structure because it's only people, which are a fairly small portion of the total live load in the building. In a library, I think 60 or 70% of the live load are the stacks. Well, that whole old library is with load-bearing stacks, and they're gridded out. And there's rows of them, and they're very narrow, and so on and so forth. And the problem is that they're not really effective for storage either. They were effective for book storage, and that was fine, but they wouldn't pass muster now for fire access because the stairways are too narrow. They don't have enough what we call exit width on them, and so on and so forth. All kinds of problems. And we had an architect looked at gutting the library. One of our historians, who's knowledgeable about these things and passionate, told me that he realizes that the whole library may have to go, and he pointed out to me, and I was a little embarrassed. I told him, "So Brian, I'm a little embarrassed. I should have seen this myself because I'm trained to look at buildings and all that. But the old library facade that faces the quad out here mirrored what we now call the engineering building facade. They were similar, and it was intentional. So we had the architects look at the idea of gutting all of those load-bearing stacks and everything else and putting in a brand new storage system, which I've never even seen one like this, and they were intrigued with it. They started to look at it, and the expense was more than, building a new building, because it was all going to have to be custom-made kind of stuff, and there were fire issues, exit issues, just a lot of stuff. Anyway, I apologize for wandering around on that, but we're working hard at it, and that's all I can say. And the plan is a very, very conceptual plan right now. And as we get more information, it will start to take shape. It will, hopefully. And John Smithy and I and the Chancellor are all committed to try to get something by May so we can say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And if there's any challenges or any of that, we'll know that during the summer and can kind of take steps from there, see what we've got. And we should have some kind of a general concept by then. There'll still be unanswered questions, but
I apologize. I promise this will be my last.
no, this one, don't make promises you can't keep. We need to get engaged.
I have, a bunch of my colleagues want me to ask you certain things.
Okay.
And this is such a great opportunity because you're right here. So 3 things. What kind of outreach has been made to students to sort of gauge their sort of? I know the the student senate has said some stuff, and what kind of outreach has been done to the students to sort of gauge their interest and maybe even like their willingness to put some skin in the game for the future of the museum? The second thing is maybe not a question, but just like a reiteration. I know you care about WT as a regional research university, and on the humanities side, access to those archives is such an important part of that. Can you tell us of any efforts to sort of guarantee continued access to those archives for this, admittedly, what's going to be definitely a long process of whatever happens? And then the third thing is, okay, I, like you, I hate misinformation and just uninformed stuff floating around on social media. I hate that. But
And there's a lot of it.
And there is. But I've heard concerns that appear to be legitimate of things being given away, auctioned off, or even thrown away from the museum, and that aren't going through the proper deaccessioning protocols. And so I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask about that. If you could comment on that and steps to make sure that's not happening.
I just talked to Heather today, who's the executive director of the museum, and I'm going to now get a monthly report of what's being deaccessioned. Here's my problem. I don't know the appropriate process from an inappropriate process, but I do know this. For example, if there is no paperwork on an item, there's no transfer of the item, there's no record of it. If somebody drops something You know, like if you go to the women's center downtown and put some clothing at the back door, and there's no receipting, no anything. If there are items in the museum for which there are no paperwork, then the professional staff makes a judgment about how to, when I say dispose, I don't necessarily mean throw away, but what's the best thing to do. And as far as I know, Ryan, they're asking other museums for stuff, for example, that there's no paperwork on. They're trying to do everything they can. They have deaccessioned now 15,000 items. And that sounds like a lot of items, and it is in one way, but the museum has over 2 million items. So this is a very small percentage of the total collections. But so Ryan, to that point, I think the professional staff are being careful, and I did just this morning after I got off the phone with the chancellor, because he wanted to have a report so we could gauge progress. And THC came and looked at what we were doing and what they thought was important to our collections and so on. THC is Texas Historical Commission. And they gave a report that I've seen a rough draft of, because it was a rough draft, I told Heather, I don't even want to keep this. They showed it to me during the meeting. I said, keep it, I'll wait for the final draft. So I have something that, has the sort of seal of approval on it, that it is what it's supposed to be. And we're gonna be as accountable as we can. And in defense of the museum staff, I think they are being very accountable. But I can understand that people might be worried. And some of the things like that old bicycle, apart from a connection to a human being, it is not a rare object in any way. And I don't think it describes, and I don't mean to be dismissive or anything else, but I just don't think it has any great, I told somebody the other day, I was telling that story, I said, I don't care if Sam Houston rode the bicycle. I know he didn't, but if he did, even that wouldn't impact to me, its value to hold for the museum, because it's just a common, it'd be like somebody had a fork from a restaurant and said Sam Houston used this fork to eat dinner one Saturday afternoon. Not interesting to me. I think they're being and they're following all of the accrediting rules. They're accredited by the American Museum Association. I'm not sure that's the correct title. I apologize if it's wrong. But they belong to a group, and they treat that accreditation very seriously, because there's a fairly small number of museums in that group. There's a lot of large museums that you would think would be in that group, but they're not. And they have the standards for deaccessioning and so on that they're following. Okay, that's point number one. Ryan, you had two others.
Students and archives.
Like to what degree have folks reached out to students?
Utilization. Yeah. We're going to try to make continuous utilization. One thing, don't take this as anything other than an idea that I mentioned. We have, because of this building now, we have space available in the basement of our library. I've even talked to Shauna. How would it be a burden that they could bear to be stewards of what I call the paper archives? And I think they largely are the paper archives. And no three-dimensional objects, no artwork, but just the paper. And she said that is something that they would very much welcome to look at and try and understand. And by the way, I think that would increase accessibility a whole lot, and maybe things like digitization and so on and so forth. Those paper archives, you should be able to use your cell phone and get access to all of that stuff. And we've started, but I wish we had started it 15 years ago, because now we'd be finished. And I just think they're very important. And the last one, I'm trying to be respectful.
Students, reaching out to students.
Oh yeah, well, I went and spoke with student government and spent an hour one night, and they had questions kind of like these. And they did create a
resolution.
That's it, a resolution. Saying that they thought the museum was important and so on and so forth. And I didn't disagree with any of it. I'm pleased to have the resolution. But they did not, for example, say that they'd be willing to put any, to quote Ryan, skin in the game, like a fee. And I don't know that we'd even be able to charge a fee for that. But it's a legitimate question, and that's what I mean about civil discourse. I think we should be able to talk about all these things, because students are paying for it now. $129 a piece, or 27, I forget the number, too many numbers, but annually for all of our students to turn on the lights and all that sort of stuff. And because if we weren't using the money for the museum, we could use that to buy additional collections for the library, I don't know, fix up some other deferred maintenance around the campus. That money, that $100,000 a month is enough to create I think a 1.5% increase in salaries across the campus. That money wasn't earmarked for the museum. It's general revenue. And when we make the commitment to do it over there, we're actually foregoing other commitments that could have a positive impact on the university. For example, in the merit pay, I haven't looked at this carefully yet, but one of the issues is that the merit pay increases are not enough. I would agree with that. And we've had a lot of competing forces for the resources that are available. Ryan, I hope that helps.
Yes,
By the way,
thanks so much.
yeah, and I'm going to tell you, you can send me an email anytime with any questions, and I'll try to do my best. I have been told to be a little careful because I'm willing to project and share ideas, and I have to be careful because I like to. People call it spitballing. I don't usually use that expression, but I like to put ideas on the table. I think it comes from being a designer and seeing what they might hold, what value they might have. And I have to be very careful because, one who said he was going to do this, and I haven't said a thing today about exactly what we're going to do because I don't know. But I'm willing to consider anything. Anything. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, what does it look like in there?
You know, it's funny you ask. Some of the areas are thankfully starting to look airy, vacant, which is good. We're making progress. But a lot of it, if you walk through it, you would say, nothing's changed. There hasn't been a lot of change, but there are a lot of blank spots on walls now and so on and so forth. And it's just this morning, Heather told me that some of the areas are actually starting to look like they've been, in a sense, cleaned out. We've removed work and so on and so forth. And I told her, because I'm going to create a report every month, and I told Heather, let us do a sort of a photo display of changes that are taking place inside the museum to show progress, where things are. Because no matter what happens, I think people understand this, no matter what happens, we have to be prepared to move almost everything that's in the museum, the current museum, out of the museum to make it safe. There's a lot of work. It's just, the chancellor said, yes, that's right. You couldn't renovate a house and leave all your clothes in the closet and stuff in the refrigerator. So you can't do it. You have to prepare for it. And that's kind of what we're facing. And he was right. And I'm glad he's paying attention, trying to think through this with me. And he wants a solution. He's very, in a positive sense, practically minded, pragmatist. Let's solve the problem. What is the problem? Money. We have a lot of money. This would all be easy, but we don't. Competing priorities. I don't know what the economist calls that.
The economists would say there's no solutions, there's only trade-offs. So,
Sound like an economist I work with on a fairly regular basis, and that's what he tells me all the time. Anyway, well, I apologize for that long-winded thing and appreciate your attention. We were supposed to be finished.
Oh, we're only 9 minutes over. That's not terrible.
Not terrible.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get a chance to share that. I'm going to say, any of you, I said it to Ryan, but any of you, if you have a question on this or one of your colleagues says, well, why didn't that guy think of this? Send an email and ask me, and I'll answer it in writing, and everything I do in writing is public. Everything is public. I don't have a private life in that office. There's none. You can see the PIR requests.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Winder, for answering those questions. Thank you so much to you, colleagues, for your dedication to the university and your colleges and to shared governance. We'll go ahead and close this meeting, and I'll be in contact via email. Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's keep plugging on the merit pay.
Yes.
Right.
It's a good discussion going on.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with the progress.
You should be.
Brandon, do you want us to give?
Yeah, I'll
sorry.
come around and grab them. Yeah. If you guys just wanna leave them there, that's
We need to
fine.
get a little hold it.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I love you. I love it. I grew up in that place and all that.
So you mentioned the opportunity cost of the funding, what's the opportunity cost of the building other than the deferred?
see if
It's only been that night.
Bridget,
Do you
I'm
ever
trying
think
to
of space?
I can figure out how to get it to you.
Uh,
Or it's like if that moves out of that space, you're just gonna